Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about why bar speed impacts effective reps. And I'll have up in the background kind of alternating back and forth between some of my closed grip bench rep work for sets of 10 and some of my speed work on closed grip bench press to kind of give you guys an idea of the difference of what we're talking about. Now, when we start talking about things like effective reps, a lot of the experts out there, and again, we're talking about researchers, and we're talking about researchers who actually coach people, have said things like Beardsley, for example, has broken down that usually if you want to get effective reps, and what we mean by effective reps are reps that can stimulate a training response. In other words, what's a training response? Well, generally it's hypertrophy. Now, people could argue that there might only be hypertrophy of certain muscle fibers, certain fiber types, things like that, and there can be a degree of truth to that. But by effective reps, we mean reps that can stimulate a training response. And you need a minimum amount of effective reps in a training session to disrupt the homeostasis of the muscle and to get bigger. In other words, more gains. So what do we mean by effective reps? Reps in which you are working hard enough to get gains. Okay, that's put it into layman's terms that every gym bro will understand. Did you work hard enough on that rep to help you get gains? Will it contribute to your gains, your growth? And it's usually being within 5 reps of failure. So in other words, if you use a weight that is your 15 rep max, and what we define as a 15 rep max. So you can rest, pause, and cheat to 15 reps? No, 15 rep max is a weight that if you just do one continual set, you'll fail the 16th rep if you don't take any breaks and you use good form all the way through. Okay, that's a 15 rep max. You can do exactly 15 reps. The 15th rep will feel as heavy as a max, and if you try to do the 16th rep, you'll miss the rep completely. So on a 15 rep max, we don't get any stimulation until the 11th rep. In other words, if you come in and you start doing 10 rep sets, what's going to happen? In theory, you're going to stimulate minimal, if any, growth, even if you do a lot of sets. Now, does that mean there wouldn't be any eventually? Well, no, that's not what it means, because we get weaker with each set, especially if they're done close together. So if you were to string a bunch of 15 rep sets or a bunch of 10 rep sets together with your 15 rep max, you're going to start getting fatigued several sets in, and it might drop down to your 13 or 12 or 11 rep max. And at that point, you're getting effective reps finally after multiple sets. Okay, so that's what we mean by effective reps. So if you're working with your 10 rep max, for example, you don't start stimulating a response till around rep 6. And you've seen guys like Dr. Mike Israetel say that, look, with each rep you get closer to failure, there's probably a slightly larger training response because you're more and more fatigued or reaching more upper threshold fibers. Okay, and that's well and good. And when we're running normal training programming, when you're writing stuff for a client or for yourself, you can kind of calculate your effective reps. You can calculate your effective reps. And what is it you usually need with people? A lot of experts will say to stimulate maximum growth. I've heard claims such as up to 25 to 50 effective reps, somewhere in that range for a muscle group. Now, it can actually be quite a bit lower than that, particularly for the more novice lifter, right? But if we're doing stuff like the 5x5s, which we throw at novice lifters all the time, you do a 5x5, what do we get? Well, if it's with a 6 rep max, you're probably not getting limit sets till around the last set or two at the most, right? So what are you going to get? You're going to get about 22, 23 effective reps. Well, that's a lot. If it's on a squat or a bench press, big movement, it's a lot of effective reps. Now, what I've seen is I've seen guys like Knuckles create quite a credible argument that that's well and good at a slow bar speed. And the thing is, here's the caveat. You've seen guys like Beardsley who have said at normal tempos, slightly slow reps. Why does he specify that? Because bar speed impacts rep quality. Bar speed impacts muscle fiber recruitment. So we'll get over to what Knuckles said in a bit, and some of his stuff on Stronger by Science. What's the research show on compensatory acceleration? And that means exploding as hard as you can with a weight. It produces a larger response on the EMG. Now, does that mean the EMG is the be-all, end-all? No. EMGs don't tell us everything we need to know. More muscle activation doesn't always guarantee more muscle growth. Okay? Is it a positive trend? Yeah. In other words, if you do something that causes more activation in a muscle than something else, it's probably not going to cause less hypertrophy, but it may not cause more either, right? There's not a perfect overlap between muscle activation and hypertrophy, and that's the reality of it, because there's a lot of things involved with the stretch shortening cycle happening. Okay, so what do we know about it? Well, we've seen the data out there that shows that when 3 different cues are used to lift a weight, such as the bench press, right? If you just lift a bench press a percentage of your max and just lift the weight without thinking about anything other than just lifting, and they test the EMG on the pec and the triceps, it gives you a baseline reading. If a person comes in and focuses on really contracting their chest hard, they see something like a 6% or 7% increase in the muscle activity in the chest, right? Mind-muscle connection. Is that massive? No. It's a small amount. It's less than 10%, but it is something. So that means there is something to the mind-muscle connection. If we can read it on a computer that's hooked up electrodes, we can read the difference, then it's doing something in the body. Fair enough. What happens when they concentrate on the triceps? The tricep activation goes up and the pec returns to what it was when you weren't concentrating. Okay? Internal cues is what it's called. Bodybuilders call it the mind-muscle connection, but it's called internal cues. When they have them explode the weight as hard as they can, an external cue, again, speed, compensatory acceleration, what happens? The pecs and the triceps both lit up more. In fact, they slightly, by a couple of percentages, again, relatively insignificant amount, than concentrating on the pecs or the tricep. It's produced more response in both muscles than concentrating on either muscle. Okay, and this isn't the first bit of data we've seen on this over the decades. There's a lot of it. Bar speed matters. Knuckles has put forward the idea that if you move the weight fast enough, to hit the upper threshold fibers, which we do have studies showing that you can do that with 50% of your max on your first rep if you move it fast enough and powerful enough rate of force production, that you can hit upper threshold fibers. I've seen Knuckles, again, postulate that even with a 20 rep set, you can get an effective rep, in theory, if you explode fast enough. So what does this mean? That means when we start exploding the weight as hard as we can, this effective rep concept goes away. Now, when I say that, then I get people who say things like, well, should I explode every rep as hard and as fast as I can? Well, maybe, but you're probably going to have to use less weight. In other words, you see me doing these normal tempo sets of 10 on the closed grip bench with, 230? Okay, if you were to explode those as hard as you can, you're probably not going to get to 10 reps. So from a tonnage perspective, maybe not. But it's not to say that it doesn't matter. What I would suggest is maybe pick exercises that are most suited to it. Now, obviously, speed work like the speed bench and stuff, yeah, I'm getting a training effect. I'm exploding as hard as I can with the chains and everything. And by the way, that's just as much weight on the bar once the chains are added as what's in the other one, especially at the lockout. It's pretty much the same amount of weight for those curious. Okay, the speed matters, though. Are we getting a training response from that? Yes. I would suggest, again, the same thing. How about when we look at exercises that have high rates of force production? How about a Pendlay row? How about a box squat? Yeah, if you explode as quickly as you can, we get a higher quality training response. Because we can't do this on every exercise. And I'm not suggesting that you need to do speed on everything. I'm not saying we should ever lift a weight intentionally slow, but there are some exercises that are more suited to this than others. And a lot of your training volume, you don't necessarily need to do it for your volume work. but there's a lot of exercises that it lends itself very well to that give you a very good training response. And it's another way to think about it. In other words, what's my short of this? It's what I tell my clients with their Pendlay rows. I want to see bar speed rather than you adding continual weight to an explosive type exercise. Okay, this exercise lends itself to speed and power. I want to see bar speed. I don't want to add weight to the bar and have you slow down with it. Okay, we can do other exercises that are slow. This isn't one of them. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.